able to join us today. I will begin with a very brief context as to why are we here. I will then introduce all of my four guests who very kindly accepted my invite to be on a holiday. Technically, it's a holiday in the north, and I'm sure other parts of India as well. But that's the beauty of online, that we can still connect. So thank you to all my guests, starting with Mrs. Burman. Mrs. Amrita Burman obviously needs no introduction. Yet she is the Deputy Director of the Sunbeam Group of Institutions in Varanasi, India. Again, maybe someone who I've known for ages now by the looks of it, and always pleasure to have her with us. And a very distinguished educator, I must say that, and I say this all with all my humility and modesty, purely because I have seen her work. In fact, when I was in Indore and I was talking to Submadi, even that person, a gentleman, was absolutely enamored by the work of Mrs. Burman, right? So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
If I'm getting a little over the top, nevertheless, you truly deserve it for that matter, right?
Thank you so much. It's an honor. Thank you, and I'm humbled. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I will want to Mrs. Revathi Srinivasan. I had a pleasure of meeting her last year when I was in Mumbai, and she was kind enough to take out time. Obviously, she's the director of Singhania Group of Schools. She's the principal at one of their schools, I believe, in Thane, right? So Revathi ji, obviously, again, a very distinguished educator in our country.
देखा नहीं है, भी देख लेंगे.
Yes, we can see it as well. Okay, so one more thing, I'll quickly do it. I'll put everybody on the mute. So this is, as I said, I am doing it after a while. I have forgotten my drill, so I will just mute everybody. Yes. So as I was mentioning, Revathi ji, again, fabulous work. When I got to meet her in Thane, the passion which she was involved in, and I think what really caught my attention recently was that I think she's now doing a lot of stuff in the rural area. That is something which really caught my attention, and fabulous. Obviously, I wish we gain from your experience a little more, and we have you more frequently on IPN while you are busy. But thank you very much for this time, for taking out time to be with us. Thank you. All my at least guests, I'm making you the co-host so that you can very easily, in fact, unmute yourself, I would say, in that sense, right? There are two guests who are first time on IPN. They are, I would say, they are the new ones to the fore. And I am taking the liberty of asking the gentleman to come at the last, which is by Mrs. Rupkatha Sarkar, principal of the Martiniere School for Girls in Kolkata. Again, I was in Kolkata, so I got to meet her during our IPN Manthan initiative. Fabulous. I obviously needs, again, no introduction, purely because the body of work precedes everything else. So wonderful, Rupkatha ji, and thank you very much for accepting my invite to be with us this evening. And I think I missed out that we all were wishing each other happy Sankranti as well. Okay. While I believe, I'm not sure of, is your network fine? Because I don't think I can see you on the screen so far. Okay, I think she will put this together. In the meantime, I will quickly welcome, last but not the least, the gentleman of the lot, which is Dr. John Harrison, who is the director cum principal at Litera Valley School and DPS Patna. Again, a very new introduction to me. I have not met him yet, but his body of work obviously get to see a lot on the social media, and I thought I should be very biased if I do not invite a gentleman in all ladies conversations. So I thought, please do chip in. So hence he is making up for being a gentleman in the ladies group, I would say, right? Which is completing the group in a better way, inclusive group. Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. John, as well. Thank you and good to see you. I hope your network is fine, and we would love to hear it from you as well as we go along.
Yeah, good so far, Gaurav. Thank you so much for having me on board. It's a pleasure being here.
Perfect, lovely, and thank you for having accepted, all of you, my invite. I will quickly outline how we will do this. So we will hear it from all of you one by one, which is in the same order in which I made the introduction, so that there is no confusion there. I understand completely there is a likelihood of the last one who goes has very little to say in terms of the repetitiveness of the nature of the points, maybe. But please do not feel so. I'm sure the overall conversation is such that everybody will add to the conversation. Even if you're validating the point said by the first speaker, that's just reaffirmation to the fact that we are on the right track, right? So for the benefit of all of you who are joining us for the first time, we are doing this third in a row now. We have done this in the past 2 years as well, wherein we invite some distinguished guests at IPN who help us set the context of the year, maybe for in all of us, in fact, by top 10 priorities, which will be on your top radar or will be taking your mind share as you go along. Okay. Now, 10 is a very exhaustive number. Please understand this. I would say it's an indicative number. We don't have to really fill the 10 pointers. If we feel it is 5 point good enough, so be it. Fair, right? So I don't want to put any pressure before we even start this. Okay. So having said this, we are just 2 minutes shy, and everyone else who is joining us, thank you very much for joining us from whichever part of the country you are joining us. I would request all of you, if at all, you can come on the video. That's a better way of interacting. We'll get to know you better. However, that's not a mandatory requirement. Last but not the least, once all our speakers have spoken or given their perspective, we'll open up the house for conversation, which is your questions to the leaders. They'll take it up. Okay. We will try to do this in exact 60 minutes so that we all go back and enjoy Sankranti. Okay. Mrs. Burman, over to you. Let's start with you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. And always a pleasure to be here to speak on any platform of IPN and to connect with all the leaders. There's always a lot of learning, I think, in interaction. I just wanted to add to what Gaurav said. It's happened in the past and it will happen again, that our priorities are going to match. There will be a lot of repetition, but personally, I would love to listen to your viewpoint. What are your priorities? Because it's not just the priority I'm sure each one of us is going to speak about. It's also the reason why it's become a priority. So it may be on my priority list, but the reasons may not match, and your reason may just add to my reason to make it more on my priority list. So I would love to listen to all your points, whatever they may be. Having said that, I do have my 10 priorities penned down. And thanks to Gaurav, there is work always that's done. It's true for all of us. But I don't know whether we really sit down as leaders at the beginning of a session and write down the priorities, But I think for the past 2 years, and this is the third year, that I have been writing them down, putting my mind into it and realizing, okay, these are the top things that I should be thinking about. The other thing is that these 10 things are not in any order of importance, because all of them are important. It's all situational. It's some certain things will come up immediately before we even start the session, because you have to plan for it. Certain things will come up as the year progresses. So for me, actually, this is the third time I'm giving this as a priority, and probably will remain, I think, for another 1 or 2 years, seeing the flux again in our sector, in our space. It's the hybrid format of teaching, from an online, pure online during COVID, to an absolutely offline, because there was so much of online fatigue that if at that time when we had open school, besides, of course, the governmental regulations, had I said, let's go online even for a day, everybody would have thrown their hands up in the air and said, now, come on, no more. We are just tired and sick of this. We want to touch base with our kids, and there's nothing like offline. Now, we stand at a position, and I'm happy about it, when in the course of this year, having brought back a little bit of online to move to a good hybrid format, the teachers, and more importantly, the parents, have understood the benefit of a hybrid format. And I feel more relaxed now to bring in the nuances and the training that is needed for a hybrid format, because I have done the convincing. Now it's time to act better on it and better our style of doing hybrid. So for me, that's a very, very important thing to do, because I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I want to keep the best of the online. And we all know as educators, there are great things about online. But with the hybrid format, with a flip that was already going on in most of our progressive schools, there has been a lot of device usage by the children. There is no doubt that it has increased. And therefore, I have to bring in place, and we are working on a device oblique mobile in particular, de-addiction format. There has to be, and there is, a lot of talk and a proper framework that is coming up in our institution, where there is going to be a lot of work that we're going to be doing on device mobile de-addiction, because I think that has come up as a problem. And you can't tell anyone, even if parents tell me today, let's not have the mobiles in the hand. If I don't do online, your child will still have a mobile in his hand. Probably you'll make it what's important is, are you carefully handling that device that you have in your hand? Are you safe with it, both mentally and physically, and also sexually, which is a very, very big thing today when it comes to little children? How much of nonsense am I watching, or stuff that I'm not supposed to be watching? So rather than putting it in the back burner, we might as well come out with it and speak about it. So that's another big priority for me. Having said that, again, because it is connected, mental health. We did mention mental health. We already have a whole school policy. I mentioned that earlier, so I don't want to go on with the same thing. But since issues have changed now, once again, aligning the school systems, our pastoral guides, like all our teachers are trained as first-hand counselors. We have to do it once again because there are new issues that have come up. Our quality circle time syllabus has to change a little because other issues need to be discussed now. I have to get in more counselors, train my counselors a little more. So my complete mental health curriculum has to go through a little bit of revamp, and people have to go in for a little bit more of training because we have to move with the times. The other fourth thing for me would be reading as a skill. After COVID, though writing and the other skills have come back up far more easily than reading, because reading is a very, very important skill. And when we lost out on those 2 years of good reading, we are not yet back up. So we have really, really been working and are going to continue working a lot on getting reading as a skill back into our classrooms as a habit and as something that is going to train the children to learn for life. It's a skill which helps you to learn for life. So I think reading is another very, very important thing. Another very important priority for me is the pre-primary. The NCF is out. I think one of the most beautiful documents that have come up from the government, simple, handles just about everything and talks so simply about what should be done in the early childhood range from 3 to 8. And, I've been going through it, taking down my points, just circling things that I think we still need to bring into our early childhood curriculum. So I think NCF reading for my complete set of teachers, recommending parents to read NCF because they have a huge role to play in it, and then implementing in the school areas that I think we could improve when it comes to early childhood care and education in my institution. So that's another thing that I wanted to mention. One more major issue with the children is lack of focus, lack of concentration after COVID, which everybody again spoke about, but I don't think we've been able to completely overcome it because there's been a complete paradigm shift, as I mentioned earlier, in the way our children are beginning to learn today. The distractions in many ways is tremendous. And I think the lack of connect with the teachers though a lot back up, has left, I don't know whether everybody feels it, but in our institution, we talk a lot about it, a little bit of indiscipline in the students, lack of listening to people, listening to simple instructions, which is important for a teacher to give, norm setting, where she expects the children to follow because she needs complete space and attention when she's teaching. That has gone a little bit out of the window. We need to again get down to our meditation, get down to our engagement with the students in the right way by the teacher, to get that concentration and focus back. And therefore the connect has to be stronger between the child and the teacher. Again, here I think the teachers need to train themselves in coming up with newer ways of connecting. Maybe your older ways are not working with children anymore. Children are looking for something more novel, more engaging. So are we ready for that? I think that's something that's really come up in a big way in our institute. Is SDG. We've taken it up. I mean, SDGs have been around for some time by the UN, and environment has been an issue. We've been talking about it. But I was always struggling as to how I can integrate SDGs into my everyday curriculum, integrate it with every subject so that it doesn't stand out as something that is delineated from what you're doing every day. Because I would like environmental issues to be a habit to be handled. So if right from the junior school till the seniors, whenever a teacher teaches, like she already teaches of values and her skill building, she has to also start talking about SDGs. So I'm working on a curriculum right now, which is integrating SDGs into our everyday teaching. I'm very excited about it. And I think that may just be the way forward when it comes to attainment by the students, our future of the SDG goals of the UN. The other thing, I don't want that this should again go out of the window, because I think it was great during the pandemic, which is the global connect and internationalism. Still going well, has to be pushed a little more, because again, that's another thing that took a little bit of a backseat when the online business I don't want to do, came in. I have to bring it back in a much more rigorous way, because we've been very high on our global connect, and so travel is back up. Children have been traveling, but I want the online because it makes it easier, and you can connect to any place anywhere in the world. I want that to happen. My last two things. One is gamification. I have been working with my teachers a lot on gamification, a lot of assignments to be made on gamification, getting gamification in, and the teachers to be trained for it. So I want to push my teachers a little more, with the balance, of course, of technology and not overuse of it, in getting gamification. And I don't want to buy a product. My teachers have been developing their own stuff on gamification. So I want to work with the teachers board and bring in a little bit more of gamification into the everyday teaching, because whatever little we've got in, kids are absolutely loving it, and parents are excited because children are showing some great positive spark with gamification coming in. And last, something without which I think none of us can do. Whatever we do, teachers are right on top. If you don't make your teachers the catalyst, if they are not well trained, nothing happens. So whatever I've spoken about, there is a complete plan for next session's teacher training, so that whatever may be ideas or whatever comes up on a paper has to be implemented, and it is only the teacher who can make this possible. For these are my top 10 priorities.
I'm so happy that you brought the last point in place, because I was getting a little scared that where has the teacher training missed out, and my priorities are on that one somehow. But thank you very much. I think a very comprehensive list. We will take that up one by one, but I quickly pass it on to Revathi ji. Revathi ji, over to you.
Yes.
While I'm, yeah.
So beautifully put, Amrita. I think a whole lot of points that were covered. I'm going to try and avoid things that, so that there is no repetition, though of course, if at all it's repeated, we'll see a different angle. But thank you, Gaurava, for having organized this. It's all about thinkers coming together and exchanging their views. That's very important, because each one of us live in our own areas of work. And what really happens is that when we exchange ideas like this, we get to know the other's thoughts, and we sort of, it's kind of a pat on your back as well sometimes, to tell you that, yes, there are a lot of people doing the same kind of stuff, and that's wonderful. And nice to meet a lot of friends on this platform. Thank you very much. Having said that, let me begin by saying that I think, to me, leaders are the builders of organization and organizational culture. And I think more than anything else, I think the school leaders, they're all instructional leaders. And therefore, how to think differently is going to be priority today. They are champions of diversity, equity, and inclusivity. All of these are coming up in a very big way these days. It's becoming more visible, and we are all experiencing it. And therefore, each one of these school leaders have to stand as icons and as champions for the causes of all of these. They are ambassadors, they are communicators, and therefore their way of communication and their mode of communication should be just opening up vistas to everyone in the society. Having said that, I think my priority is going to be looking at the new world with a new lens. Because I think we are going to live in a completely new world. The new world actually requires a different mindset and a completely different mind. And for that different mind, I need to do the priority number one would be to self-reflect. And I think the exercise has to be done very consciously. Most of the time when we have been principals for 20 years, 25 years, you start believing that, yes, you know the school very well, you know the people, you know the parents. And when you stand there, the parents themselves will come, ma'am, how are you? Because you are also, for me, for example, I'm seeing my second generation students whom I've taught are my parents now. So I just see them all along and they say, hi, ma'am, they feel so excited about it. But that's when you have a greater responsibility, because you have to start thinking what you did then, you can't do now. And even if you were principal then, you cannot do the same thing now. What you did 5 years back, you can't do. And what you did 2 years back, you can't do now. So that's the pace at which things are moving. One has to be really, really very, very careful about doing an exercise which is of self-reflection. We need to take stock of what are our strengths. And over the years, we would have evolved. So there would have been so many areas where there would have been gaps. We would have already filled it. But in the new world and with a new mindset, when we start looking, you will start seeing some of your strengths not as strengths anymore. And therefore, one needs to start working on that. The second aspect, and to analyze that, is very important, so that we start looking at opportunities differently and make use of these opportunities so that we rise to our fullest potential. Because when we rise to our fullest potential, we start throwing opportunities to our teachers, to our parents, to our students, who in turn will rise to their fullest potential. And that should be the very purpose of education, that we provide equal opportunities to all so that each rise to their fullest potential. Once I think we get that, the purpose of education is served. I would also like to do the second, and priority would be building a culture and a new school culture. So within the large setup of the school, there is a school culture, which is perhaps defined by the vision, mission, and plus the management. But when it comes to the school and the functioning of the school, there are many subcultures. There's a kid culture. There's a culture in the canteen. There is a culture in the staff room. There's a culture in the classroom. There's a culture in the sports ground. As a leader, I think we must know each of these cultures well and define it with the right kind of norms and create a culture of good health, of security, of safety. You have to create a culture where people are more sensitive to the needs of others. So even in a sports ground, for example, The child should understand that I win, I feel happy, yes, but I also cheer the one who has lost. So I think that kind of a culture needs to come in very much. So there has to be a shared vision. So most of the time, it remains with the top management or the top people. So I think it needs to come down to the last person, including the security, the cleaners in the school, because, then that way, everyone will be speaking the same language. So value systems have to come in very strongly. So we keep telling that this is because values are missing. The younger generation, no, the values are not missing. It hasn't got penetrated to them. That's the thing. Then, so whose fault is it? It's that of the society. As adults, we continue to talk, but we don't remain as icons for the children to ape. So therefore, if we talk and we don't practice anything that we are preaching, then obviously children are not going to learn it. So that's the reason why it's very easy when we tell children, when we are talking about democracy, when we are teaching history in classrooms, students nowadays counter question us because they're seeing on television something very different. So how important it is for our society to very consciously start thinking in terms of how they have to behave, how they have to talk, and how they have to discipline themselves. So I think that value system needs to come in. So that component, that's one area that as a new culture, I'd like to work on. Engaging with the community. See, it's not that we don't have these value systems. It's not that we are not engaging our parental community or the stakeholders as a whole. It's not like that. But after these 2 years, definitely there is a change. There's a change in the mindset of parents, of the community as a whole, and of that of the teachers, of the students. So we need to come now to look at it with a different glass and different lens. I would like to say the culture should be one of real learning, where children are able to connect with the real world. And we talk things which are not just idealistic, but actually real, so that they start feeling what they are learning in classroom is going to be effective when they are outside of classroom. So how do we bring in that blend of experiences which are personal as well as professional, I mean, as classroom teaching, both of them, how do we blend them together? I would also look at a very important component for me, the culture of learning from the point of view of teachers, from the point of view of the principal, because I think this continuous personal and professional growth and development of the teachers is what's going to take things forward. Because if I don't see anything for me, why would I do it? So what is in store for me is now a big question for everyone, for every professional. So when they see that growth, and very often as school managements may think that if you're investing about $1 lakh on a teacher's training, what if she leaves or what if he leaves? My answer to it is that the person is going to some other educational space, to another school, which is also education space. Somewhere else, another 100 kids are going to benefit. So let it benefit children at large. And so when we as professionals, as school leaders, get that magnanimity of looking at teachers as resource persons, as professionals, I think it goes a long way in working towards the educational area and aspect of India's education. That's how I'd like to put it. The fourth aspect of care, of culture, is culture of care, commitment, and well-being. This is very important. How do we bring in that culture, which culture means we have to breathe it. We have to breathe in and out with the same kind of thing. It should reflect on every of our actions, every speech that we make. It's not that what we talk is very different from what we are doing, and how important it is for us to build that care concern. So simple examples that we can do is, can we get our little ones in grade 3 and 4 to take care of the ones in the kindergarten for a day, so they understand what are the needs of the little ones. So simple things like this, care for pet animals, care for plants, each of these. So we don't have to talk about climate change. We don't have to talk about all of these separately as a lesson in their environmental education. We just have to make them live it. And the more they live that life, I think they will start speaking about environmental education, which they will get sort of internalized. The third priority for me is to optimize systems in school. When the school is system driven, it works well. So one of the aspects of systems that I'm going to be talking about is managing people. How do we bring in resources? How do we help people resources to manage physical resources? How do we do the optimization of resources so that there's no waste anywhere? The second is about management of data and processes in our work. So I think most of the time we operate nowadays with a lot of data. So how do we teach the last person in the school how it is to operate with the data, and how do you take decisions with the data that you have? So I think when we come, we are actually elevating them to thinking at a different plane, and that will help them because they can look at careers differently as well. Managing talent is very important. Sometimes as school leaders, we give everyone the same kind of responsibilities, but I think it's time to go beyond that. If we see the strength of a person lies in teaching and not in any kind of admin work, I prefer to give that person more teaching, because that person is in a comfort zone. Why? Especially if that person has been in the institution for a while, why make that person so uncomfortable? So strengthening their administrative abilities is important, but at the same time, giving them better themselves in the field that they are good, which in other words mean strengthen the strengths and negate the negatives. So I think that policy is something that works well. Delegation of work with authority, giving them the responsibility as well as all the joys of holding that position, I think should be there, because I think so that way the school leaders is freed from all the small nitty-gritties of work and starts concentrating on the bigger picture. I think that's for me. Fourth, very importantly, is trying to identify what is the school's uniqueness, what is the unique identity of that school. And instead of looking at all other schools around and saying that they are ranked here, there, it's better to look inside our own house and just clean it up. I think that is better, because each school is different. All our parents are different, children are different, everything is different. There is no need for comparisons between schools. And therefore, I think we all as school leaders have to come to a point where we keep that away, that competitive spirit away, and move towards more of collaboration, where there are more of exchange of ideas, the best of the thought and practices. If we can exchange on different platforms at different levels, not just at the school leaders level, but also at the teachers level, and even at the admin staff level, because they could have some of the best housekeeping practices that people can exchange. So I think that's important. So again, I'm talking in terms of how do we elevate someone? So I'm going to give you a little simple example to prove what it is. So one of my personal peons, I realized, was all the time, whenever he got time, he would read storybooks. And he was sitting outside my office, because sometimes when there's no one there, he just continues to read books, because I didn't want him to use his mobile. So this is the best way to do something. And this boy, I realized, was reading and he had good concentration. So I encouraged him to do his BCom. He did his BCom privately, went on his own to do MCom. And then we used to start teaching him a little bit of computers. Today, he knows all of computers, and he's moved into an office position. So he moved out of my office. I lost a very effective person who was handling my, the usual nitty-gritties, but I think that we have empowered him. So that is very important, that we have a system whereby anyone can move from one position to the other by the way of, creating positions where you can. That is one. Skill development is very important, not just for students, teachers, but also for parents. The school has to become a community center where parents also engage themselves in learning. That way you won't see parents on the other side of the fence and other side of the table. And I think it's very important to do that. This is another important priority, is managing time. So I think that's for everyone, it applies, because there's so many things that comes. It's an influx of activities, of things that come in by the dime and the dozen. And sometimes we lose sight of what is priority and what's important. And I think it's essential that we sort of compartmentalize that in our brains and make sure it is. I deliberately put technology almost at the end. The reason being that technology is there to stay. We have to have better skills in technology. It's something that we can't do without, and we can, yes. And what is important is that how do we work with technology? So what we have done, as Amrita rightly said, is that my own team has created all the technological resources for the class, for the school. So everything from the ERP module, everything has been created by the computer department. And therefore we keep giving them a lot more of opportunities where they can embark on their own journey on the edtech front. So I think that again is empowering people, and we have to start looking at how every individual uses technology for better efficiency. That's important. And how do we use this data for decision making? Another priority would be, it's always been a priority, but now it's greater priority because parents also have a kind of a fear. So in order to address these things, it's important to give safety, security, health, and hygiene a priority. And this has to be quite on the top of the list, because everyone is very, very scared. Because I think people have now started traveling, and all the more reasons that parents do come back to us, and all of you must be facing that as well, that come back and say that, no, that person was coughing, this one was having cold, and all kinds of these things. So how do we address these things? How do we put our systems in place to ensure that the health, hygiene, and the safety of the children is very well taken care of? Sorry. So on the whole, we see that while we did speak about mental health, so I've not spoken about it, but the culture of care, concern, commitment, well-being, when we take care of it, the mental health of the people, every individual matters, whether it is a student, whether it's a teacher, whether it is thing. And I think if that becomes priority, because at the end of the day, we all have to tell ourselves that education is all about wings to fly high, yet roots that will keep us grounded. And if those roots are very strong, the roots spread just as a strong big tree has roots that spread all around. These roots will spread all around, making the society a much better world to live in. A society free of any kind of anger and envy and jealousy and egos. And I think schools, as we say, is a temple of learning. And truly, just as we enter a temple, we accord the highest respect. Every individual who walks into the school should accord that respect. And if we have to build that, we have to build a culture of care. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, wonderful, absolutely fabulous, Revathi ji. And I'm happy that you beautifully tried not to repeat the points which Mrs. Burman were mentioning. So thank you very much. It is certainly added to the overall repository of priorities. Thank you very much. So much to obviously reflect on to begin with, as you mentioned. I will move on to our third speaker, Rupkatha Sarkar ji. Good to have you again. I hope your network is fine now. Is it working? Yeah. Over to you, Rupkatha ji, please.
Yes, now it's okay.
Perfect. Good to see you. Yes. Over to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Gaurav. And thank you, Amrita and Revathi, for wonderfully, giving us all the priorities that we look and we need to look at as a leader. So I would also try not to repeat as much, but since we are doing the same kind of work, so the focus is more or less the same. So, looking at different areas, I would say my priority this time would be giving more academic freedom to the students. You see, every time we give them in the senior classes, especially, we have the same kind of subjects. Why not, after this pandemic, give them more choices, give them more areas to look into? It is difficult because sometimes we say we do not have the faculty, we do not have the means. But I think, if we try, we will find that within our faculty, there are many who are untapped, and we can always give them that kind of freedom of a choice in the senior classes. In the middle and the junior classes, I think when we say academic freedom, I would say that, we might give them more opportunities to do and learn in a different way. We have been doing curriculum in a very, very, I should say in India, in a very, very orthodox manner. Why not try new methods, new modes of learning, more experiential learning, as we say, hands-on? Let the child play, in junior classes, because play is work for children. So sometimes, when children come home and the parents ask, what have you been doing in school? We've been playing. So I think, here we need to orient the parents and tell them playing is work for them. They learn much more than just opening a textbook or listening to just the teacher having to instruct. So I think I would look at academic freedom for students this time, especially because they have been at home for 2 years. And my mode and method of teaching would be more unorthodox, giving them chances to play, chances to elocute, chances to dramatize, chances to maybe, try a group work. So new modes of bringing in the same instruction, but giving them the freedom to choose. Of course, we can do a lot of group work. We've been trying this, that, when we give children, I'm going into a little more detail because maybe, this might be of interest to many of our educators. Sometimes, children are very, very burdened with 10 subjects and 10 projects. Why not give them one project and assess them in different areas of that same project? So suppose we say Vedic civilization. Now, in Vedic civilization, there are ways to assess them in their mathematical skills. I mean, what are the ways in which the different dimensions of the city or the bath or the areas that were there could be measured? Or if we could take, of course, history, that is part of it. Geography, where are the areas situated? So let them give presentations on the same topic, and different teachers could be just marking them so that they are using technology and they are using their freedom to choose their group, and they do a lovely group work presentation. So one topic, but they can access it through different perspectives. So this kind of giving them new dimensions in their study would make it a little more interesting. And after what we have come through, I think this will be of interest to the child. My second would be giving them a lot of support for their emotional health, which all of you have spoken. And I would like to reiterate that, yes, they need a lot of help from our side. And many of the disciplinary problems that we are now facing is because of this kind of turbulence that the children have faced in their emotional health. And we never realized, but coming back to school was difficult. Through the pandemic, they managed. But when they're coming back to school, the kind of emotional disturbances they have faced during this is now coming to light. And so this is the time when we need to support them. We need to help them to come back to the mainframe. So I think the children need a lot of patience from our side. They need a lot of empathy. And I think, this is very much needed. Also, one area that I would give priority is to make the school a safe place. You see, all these 2 years, they were not in school, and many of the systems, many of the practices, have to be again reinforced. And children are now using a lot of the gadgets, a lot of technology, and we have to teach them about their cybersecurity. So I think this is one area that I'm going to focus on, because they will be using the gadgets. We cannot take it away. It is now part of their life. And so the only way for them to be safe is to understand all the areas that they need to be cautious of, and then use it in the right way. Of course, we will require the help of parents here. And so my next priority, I would say, is to have more quality interactions with parents. We have come much closer to parents and guardians during this pandemic era, where they were really our second help, in reaching out to the children at home. And so as we have opened up this wonderful dimension, I think we need to further get into this area where we need the parents to really help us in helping the children to be safe in their cyber world. So I think this is one area that I would really need the help of the parents. My next priority would be, coming more closer to the community. I think we have realized that we cannot remain safe isolated. We need the help of the people around us. And this is where I feel, the world is really unified when we say that the community has to be looked after. And so I will have to help my children to engage more in a more quality way with the community around, maybe visit them, understand their problems. Even children can understand that. So maybe make more visits, or have children come over, make them go to the, to the field, to the real place where, help is required, so that children learn to communicate and engage with the community around them. Of course, needless to say that they need that equity and that need for the need for a place where all get equal opportunities. But it is easier said than done. So when we have communities around us where children are not looked after, where children do not have equal opportunities, as educational institutions, can we come forward? Can we take the lead to help children who are still not going to school, who do not have the means for education? I think if we take it up in a serious note, I think this community engagement will make our children real empathetic individuals and real leaders in the making. In the long run, we know that, we are making our children individuals, holistic individuals who are who understand the needs of others. So I think this is one area that we will prioritize, so that they really understand the needs of others, and using their own abilities and talents and skills, they can help others. And in this way, they too become more, they grow from within and they understand their full potential. One area, again, we have seen that, our assessment has to take a complete U-turn. The way we have been assessing children in the rote learning methods, I think time has come when we need to change our assessment mode. So it has to be done in a more formative manner. We have to be more conceptual in our focus to see their learning outcomes. So I think our priority this time will be to change our method of assessment. So this is one area we are looking into. We are also looking into a very important area, and that is teacher development. And I think here, teacher burnout and stress of the teacher has also been a major factor in focus, because they are constantly dealing with different challenges during the pandemic, and now once the children are back. There are many disciplinary problems. And so in this regard, we need to help the teacher cope with all the challenges that are in front of him or her. And so this is the time when we prioritize in building the skills of the teacher to cope with the new challenges that we have. So this is one area that we are also focusing, and we are collaborating with the schools around us to find out how we can get together and help out in this area. And so these are some of the major areas that we are looking at. And wherever the gaps have come because of the teachers and the students not being in school, we are trying to bridge those gaps. So the priority will be to build a teacher-student relationship, as Revathi also and Amrita has been stressing. So we are looking into that. And we are also finding out areas where there are learning gaps. Because of not coming to school, there are areas where we need to develop in the child also. So these are areas that we are focusing on. And in the end, we are looking at more courses for the senior classes like beauty and wellness, photography, designing, of course, artificial intelligence, robotics. So these are legal studies. So these are areas that we are looking into as new courses. And we are trying to give the students, as I said in the beginning, some new choices in their subjects. And we hope that, our career counseling management that we have will be a little more reinforced, and we will be helping our children to find places where they can find their courses, and the children can bridge that academia and that industry, the gaps. So we are collaborating with industries, and we are asking them to come and speak to our students. We are asking our alumni to come and speak to our children, so that the children are aware of what are the new areas that are coming to the fray, and they can develop on that. So these are some of the priorities that we are looking at. But over and above, as Revathi and Amrita has been saying, that we are actually trying to build holistic individuals who understand the need of others and also become responsible. So I think these are some of the areas that we are looking at in the.
Wonderful, wonderful, fabulous. In fact, as I said, the moment you are the third speaker, you try navigating it in the sense you don't want to repeat the points, yet you want to make a point. Thank you very much. I think your first point, which was academic freedom, I think that's a great thought to begin with. I'm sure girls must be liking it in La Martiniere there, and people can really take it forward from here on as well. Right. Thank you very much, Rupkatha ji. Thank you, and thank you for your valuable time. We move on to our last speaker for today's discussion. Dr. John, over to you. And while I know you have taken the bull by its horn, I would say, being the last speaker, but I'm sure you'll do a great job with that as well. Over to you, Dr. John.
Thank you so much, Gaurav. Good evening. And good evening to all my learned colleagues on and off the panel. Keeping the scarcity of time in mind, without much ado, let me get down to my 10 points. Around 3 years back, Google had conducted a research, and the research was all about to find out as to what would be that number one skill in the post-pandemic period required by the educators to work with children. And as the results would have it, that number one skill turned out to be empathy. You look at the things happening around you in the whole world, the world lacks empathy. Every relationship lacks empathy. So I think we as educators, we need to have a great reservoir of empathy, because we will not be able to touch and transform lives if we don't empathize with students. You cannot invest in anybody's life if you don't empathize with them. Point number 2, all of us know that the last 3 years, the entire world was down on its knees. Every family who exists on the face of the earth suffered. So keeping that in mind, I think it's imperative for each and every one of us to focus on the emotional well-being of humans. Emotional well-being. If you talk about surviving, sustaining, flourishing in a VUCA world which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, it's absolutely imperative again that we focus on our emotional well-being, especially keeping in mind the background we are coming from, the last 3 years that we are coming from, the struggles we have faced, the new habits we've picked up, the scares, the pains we've carried all these last 3 years. So emotional well-being was number 2 for me. Number 3, collaboration. Gone are those days which I very strongly feel, gone are those days of those standalone organizations, those standalone schools. No man is an island, they say. Similarly, I would say no organization or no institution is an island. The way forward is connect, collaborate. Number 4, intellectual stimulation. We are working with a very different breed of students now. This generation is very different from our generation. Our thought process, our mindset was very different when we were students in school. I think we need to challenge our students. If they want the autonomy for learning, let's give it to them. Let them decide. And in fact, this generation is, they are independent thinkers. They are risk takers. They want the autonomy. Let's give it to them. Let them decide as to what they want to learn. Number 5, I think one of my learned colleagues on the call, Amrita, had touched on this. We need to inculcate the habit of deep reading in our students. Deep reading. I'm an avid reader myself. Let's surround ourselves with great minds. Let's surround ourselves with great minds. The benefits of reading are enormous. You look at some of the richest and the most successful people in the world, you read their autobiographies, they openly come out and say that they owe it to reading. That's how beneficial this habit is. My next point is in perfect sync with deep reading, and that is deep work. We need to define our work ethics moving ahead. Deep work. We need to have that 2% mindset. The 2% mindset. You actually look at it, Gaurav, the whole world, 2% of the world population is ruling the 98% of the world population. Forget about the world, let's talk about India. The Adanis, the Mahindras, the Ambanis, the Tatas, 2% of India's population is ruling the 98% of India's population. Why is that so? We need to prioritize, we need to attend, we need to pursue a critical 20%. The point I'm trying to make here is 80% of our time should be utilized in pursuing our critical 20%, which is our top priority. And that's the way it should be with our students too. Our focus should be 20% and not the other way around. The mistake we make is most of our time goes in spending 80% of our time doing those 80% mundane stuff, which is not important, which is not taking us anywhere. So have that 2% mindset, focus on that 20% of yours, which is critical. The else 80% doesn't matter. Next, we need to have a growth mindset, an innovative mindset. You look at the number of startups which have come up in India, especially in the last 2 years. We've beaten the world hands down. And these startups, almost 90% of them are young minds, young people. That's what this generation is all about. Let them become those outliers, those risk takers, those polymaths which can touch and transform the world. The next is one of my personal favorites, but it's quite obvious because I have a doctorate in divinity, is prayer and meditation. Prayer and meditation. The problem starts when we humans forget that each and every one of us, each and every human being who exists on the face of the earth is a spiritual being. We are not earthly beings. We are spiritual beings who go through an earthly experience. We've been created in God's image. We've been created for His likeness. We've been created for His pleasure. I very strongly feel and believe in this, that if our relationship with God is good, our relationship with our fellow men will be good too. So we need to make our students understand. We need to understand as educators, we are spiritual beings. If you understand this, you'll be at peace. There won't be any inner struggle within you. Number 9, physical well-being. As it is said, a person who wants to move the world should first move himself. आप क्या कर पाएंगे? What will you be able to achieve if you are physically unwell? Physical health is a must. Don't neglect yourself. Self-care. Self-care. You should be your number one priority. You can attend to your spouses, you can attend to your children, your family, your students, your relatives, whosoever. आप जब ही कर पाएंगे when you are doing well yourself. And my last point, I think Revathi touched upon it, is technology. We should be technology driven. Continue to upgrade and upskill yourself. Never forget this, my learned colleagues, you are your own brand. You are your own brand. At any point of time during your career, you should be saleable. You should be up for grabs. और वो आप जब भी कर पाएंगे when you're up with the times. You should be up with the times. So these were my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Not at all. They were 24 karat gold, I would say, right? Not just 2 cents. Thank you very much. Wonderful. And what we can now quickly do is, because we are short on time, we have 8 minutes left. Let's open the house for Q&A. Anyone who wishes to ask a question to any of our esteemed panelists, just put up a show of hand, which is a virtual show of hand. We'll help you unmute and then you can ask your question. Okay? My request, let's make the question very, very focused and pointed. That will help us save on the time. Okay? So anyone who wishes to ask a question, which is in this format, I'm just virtual show of hand, we'll help you unmute and then you can ask your question.
So
okay?
Nishi ma'am wants to say something. Nishi ma'am.
Nishiji, go ahead.
Thank you, Gaurav. And I think I'm fortunate enough today to join the meeting after a very long time and to hear Revathi, Amrita, and as well as Dr. Harrison. And since he belongs to the same city where I am, I think I'm thrilled. And I loved the way Dr. Harrison spoke about empathy and understanding people. Because I think this is the best thing that one can think of after the pandemic that we have been, the unprecedented pandemic that has been, and technology, 2 very important things. If you don't change, and a lot of respect to the new generation. I think he took away, I think, my priorities as well. Dr. John Harrison, thank you so much. And I was not able to hear a lot about Amrita, but Revathi, I was able to join and hear. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Since you both are in the same city, go for a cup of coffee together or invite each other to your schools. That's better way of connecting, right? Having said this, let's have a quick question. Anyone, as I said, virtual show of hand. If you have an observation to share, please do so. If you have a question, obviously, please do pose it, right? Because I have a question which otherwise I will ask either of my jury members purely. But yes, that's where I want to talk
another
less.
thing
I'm
about
already.
sharing,
Boliye,
sharing of
Nishi ji.
resources. Sharing
Ji.
of resources, when we are
Ji.
talking about giving the freedom to children in terms of taking resources, that can be a very good idea in terms of sharing resources, in terms of facilitators. And IPN can act here a very good platform where we can give this freedom. And a very big facilitator here. And that is how, Gaurav, I see IPN as.
Surely. We'll keep that in mind, certainly. Grija, your question, if you can help unmute yourself and please ask your question. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. It was a wonderful session that we had and very educative. Priorities, what all the learned scholars had shared. It's a wonderful thing. I would just like to add one point to this.
Please.
Why can't we go with the students of class 9 and 11 to teach in the rural areas at least weekends? Would that be a successful one is what I believe, because which I had experienced it. And I had done this with my 11th standards and 9th standards when I was working with Christ Academy, just to teach the unprivileged students so that the children will learn the importance of the teaching as well, and they will enjoy sharing their knowledge with the people where they cannot afford to have their education. So that is what I would like to share at that point. And it was really a wonderful session which we had it. A
Most
beautiful way
welcome.
of where I have learned so many things. Thank you.
Man, most welcome, Krishna ji. Archana ji, and if you just let us know where are you from, that will help us connect better with
Hi,
you.
good evening, everyone. This is Archana Jain from Noida.
Okay, wonderful. Good to have you. Yes, Archana ji, how are you? In fact, yes,
I'm
you look
good.
different
How are you?
online.
Yeah,
Good.
absolutely. I was just I just heard a couple of your speakers because probably I was late to join. I heard Rupkatha ji and I heard Dr. Harrison. Dr. Harrison, I loved your expression on VUCA world, you know. I don't know, many of them may not have really understood, but it is really an interesting expression. And I certainly agree with you. You know, everything else, you know, when you all speak about, when we all heard each other, was something that we all do and we are, I'm sure, continuing to do. One that I really, really agreed with Dr. Harrison was about deep reading. I'm a 60-plus-year-old mother also. And I owe a lot of my daughter's development to Harry Potter and the Lady Who Wrote It. Because you know, that is what ignited my daughter's you know, love for reading, and it made a lot of difference. I did not even think at all that my daughter could write so well, but she writes so beautifully only because of the reasons that she read so many books. She started with Harry Potter and then it went on. And this is what is very important, that we must insist on our children. And when they do it, they are on a road of development, of growth. So not really a question. I was just agreeing with almost everything that we were all talking and discussing. But something that I really felt was that, yes, deep reading. And I could share my class 11th, when I was in class 11. My teachers, you know, I'm old and I'm ancient. So I know that we were doing those projects that we are doing today. Today we are doing it on presentation, PPTs. We were doing, you know, maybe we were given, say, for example, Indus Valley civilization. I'm talking about my history teacher. Amazing she was. She's no more, but an amazing history teacher I had. And I'm not a history student today. I had been an economics teacher throughout. But I still remember her because we used to make presentations. We used to sit, we would divide the whole topic into different parts, and each one of us was supposed to make a presentation on our section of discussion, and our fellow students would sit there across along with our teachers and assess us. Sit down. What we are talking about peer assessment today, I did it in my class 9, my class 11, and it was in 1977. Okay, so I'm old. I remember. 77. Yes. So what I'm trying to say is that if we could do it then, and we were scared, we were shivering in our shoes because our fellow students were, they were assessing us.
Correct.
So what I mean to say is an amazing journey I have had as student and as teacher. And I think we are on a good road. Yeah. I think that's what I believe. We are all on a good road. And I'm very sure we are going to take our children, our future citizens, very long.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So I will quickly take a final question. Dr. Rajesh, your question will be that, and then we'll say thank you to everyone, if you have anything to share.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gaurav. And I will be straight on the question. Question is, they can give a best practices so that we encourage meditation and spirituality among the students. Thank you.
Okay. Any one of you would like to take that up? Yep.
So what was the question? Was it about spirit? I mean,
Yes. How can we bring that into as a practice? Is that what a question is, Dr. Rajesh?
Yeah,
आप उसको अपने
exactly.
सिस्टम में
How
कैसे
do we bring it in?
in practice?
Yeah.
Okay.
The
May I
best
answer
practice
that,
which we
please,
can suggest.
Gaurava?
I'm sure.
May I please answer that?
Please, either of you, please go ahead.
Amrita, would you like to attend to it?
no. I think since you've done something on divinity, I think you should be the best person to answer.
Dr. Sharma, I think the mistake we humans make is we get confused between religion and spirituality. Please do understand that religion is man-made. Spirituality is not. God is not religious, he's spiritual.
Exactly.
The biggest problem faced by the world in today's scenario is religion. And that's where we mess up. We need to make our students, we need to make the younger generation understand, because they are the future of the world. They are spiritual. हम लोग आत्मिक हैं. I think I've answered your question, sir. Once that realization creeps in, you're done. You're done.
Can I just add to that?
Sure, please.
I'm going to be talking more as a practitioner.
Yeah.
That, when it comes to meditation or, even spirituality, because meditation is also way to spirituality, if I understand that part correctly. I think as a practitioner, when it comes to meditation, yoga, because I also spoke about lack of concentration, lack of focus, which has become a big issue, I think, for all educators today. You have to start right from the early years. There has to be a time that is kept aside where children are taught meditation, where children are forced to close their eyes and just think about whatever, which is a very difficult task to do, but it has to be inculcated as a habit right from the beginning. Your assembly time has to incorporate it. And I think the most important, your teachers who are in connect with the students have to have found peace through meditation and other ways also. They may have their own little ways, have to have found peace themselves, because if they are not practitioners, they will never be able to give those little tips that are important to a very wandering mind of a child as to how to meditate and get peace. I mean, that's just a very simple way I thought you could do it.
No, absolutely well said. And on that note, I think Rajesh ji, obviously, fair question. I hope you got your answer, but if you need a detailed win, I'm sure that either of the panelists you can connect with, right, and take your conversation forward. And thank you everyone who could join us. But more than that, thank you to my esteemed panel. Wonderful, absolutely brilliant start to the new year of ours on a Makar Sankranti. So thank you everyone who could join us and the esteemed panel. Have a great evening ahead. And thank you for your valuable time. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Gaurav.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.